What is going on, my dear kumquats? Welcome back to another video. Today we've got even more Smash Up content, and we are going to be looking specifically at the Aliens faction. So the Aliens were released in the base game along with the other 7 factions. Other 7 being the pirates, robots, zombies, dinosaurs, tricksters, ninjas, and wizards. So they've been sticking around for a long time now, and they're still to this day super strong. So as I said in my How to Play Smash Up video, I did say that a standard Smash Up deck will typically have 10 minions and 10 actions, half and half. Well, that is the case here because we do have 10 minions, except for you will notice that something's a little different. So let's go ahead and step through, and we'll go ahead and look at that outlier in a second. So we have 4 2 collectors, which say you may return a minion of power 3 or less on this base to its owner's hand. You have 3 level 3s, which are the Scout. After this base is scored, you may place this minion into your hand instead of the discard pile, so you'll always have that Scout coming back as long as it doesn't get destroyed. And then finally, the Outlier. Instead of 2 level 4s, which are a typical standard Smash Up deck, you have 2 more level 3s. And why is that? That's because the Invader is just straight up broken. Out of all the cards in Smash Up to this day, the Invader is still considered one of the top cards ever printed. And then lastly, we look at the King minion, the level 5, the Supreme Overlord. And the ability says when you play it, you may return a minion to its owner's hand. So it's worth noting that whenever looking at a faction, it's super important to look at the King minion. Because typically the King minion will let you know kind of what the strategy of the faction is all about. And in which case, it looks like it's about returning minions to owners' hands. Moving to the actions, we can see that moving minions to the hand is the theme here. We got Beam Up, 2 copies of it, return a minion to its owner's hand. Jammed Signal, play on a base, all players ignore this base's ability. Invasion, move a minion to another base. Crop Circles, choose a base, return each minion on that base to its owner's hand. Terraforming, search the base deck for a base, swap it with a base in play, discard all actions on it, and then shuffle the base deck. Honestly, Terraforming has become quite a strong card as the game has progressed through the expansions. You have 1 copy of Abduction, return a minion to its owner's hand and play an extra minion. You have 2 copies of Disintegrator, place a minion of power 3 or less on the bottom of its owner's deck. And lastly, you have 1 copy of Probe, which lets you look at another player's hand, choose a minion in it, and that player discards that minion. Okay, so after looking at the minions and the actions, let's look at what the overall strengths are of the aliens. Right off the bat, just by looking at the level 5 King minion, we can see that there's going to be a lot of minion disruption. Returning minions to owners' hands. Not destroying them, just returning them to owners' hands. And take note, a lot of these cards say owner's hand. It doesn't say your opponent's hand, it says owner's hand, so it could be your own as well. The Collector, you may return a minion of power 3 or less on this base to its owner's hand. You have Beam Up, return a minion to its owner's hand. Crop Circles, return to owner's hand. You guys get the idea. There's a lot of returning to hand for the minions on bases. And really the most eye-catching thing that the aliens have is the VP fixing that they have in their invaders. And what I mean by that is if you win one base, being 5 points, and get second at a couple other bases, maybe with 4 points, well, if you played both of your invaders just from your hand, you're gonna get 2 victory points and there you go. You've basically fixed the math in order to achieve 15 victory points. So finding ways to spam the invader over and over again is probably gonna be the best strategy when working with the aliens. Before looking at the pairings for the aliens, we should probably take a look at the weaknesses. Now the aliens have really strong abilities when coming into play, with the exception of the Scout, which doesn't really do anything until after the base is scored. Like we discussed at the beginning, the invader is only power level 3. You have no power level 4s at all. So your minions are just fairly weak, and there's nothing in the deck to buff the power of these minions. So maybe a faction that can buff the power of your aliens might be a good way to supplement this weakness. Alright, let's look at some of the great pairings for aliens. Now like we talked about, the Invader is a really strong card that, honestly, if you can abuse that gain 1 victory point ability over and over again, you're probably going to win the match. So getting the Invader out as fast as possible and reusing it as much as possible is going to be a really good route to victory. So let's look at some of the factions that can do this. The Shapeshifters have Gelf minions that will basically let you search for any power 4 or less minion and put it into play as an extra minion. This basically grabs out your invaders and gets them on the board. Then they have cards like Really to destroy one of your minions in play, to play an extra minion from your discard pile with the same or lower power. So once the invader goes to the discard pile, you can grab him right back and get that 1 victory point again. The Sprouts from the Killer Plants faction have the same type of ability. Being able to destroy it at the start of your turn, you can search your deck for a minion of power 3 or less and play it there as an extra minion. So again, searching out the invaders is super important, because in the alien deck, you notice that there isn't anything to search out the invaders. The Space Roamers are also a really good faction to pair with the aliens. They let you reuse the invader over and over again, and there are plenty of cards that let you do this, such as Port Me Up, which states return one of your minions to its owner's hand. And you can play this after a base scores. The minion must be on the scoring base. So after your base scores with the invader on it, pick back up that invader and then get another victory point. Space Roamers and the Time Travelers kind of have the same thing, picking up a card that's in play and putting it back down. So you'll see Into the Time Slip, return a card in play to its owner's hand. You have Do Over, return a minion from a base to your hand. You may play it again as an extra minion. And then Dr. Wen, same thing, you may return another one of your minions in play to your hand, and you may play it again as an extra minion. So being able to pick up the invader, putting it back down, and spamming that ability to get extra victory points is going to be super strong for you. Bypassing the victory point farming strategy, I wanted to take a look to see what I could do to patch the weaknesses of the aliens. Remember, the alien minions have really weak power levels. So what can we do? Well, we can buff them with strong minions. The dragons are actually a really nasty combo with the aliens. Being able to get extra victory points with the invader while also denying your opponent's victory points with your Great Worm, that can be quite devastating to your opponents. While also denying victory points with the Great Worm, you also have minions like the Wyvern that give you more power while also reducing the breakpoint of a base. This essentially buffs your minions' power in a passive way. Another minor weakness of the aliens is that it's kind of hard to get to your invader. You don't have much of a card draw engine. So with the addition of the Imperial Dragon letting you draw a card anytime a player moves a minion or plays a minion on the base where the Imperial Dragon is, you pretty much have a really good package with the dragons and aliens. Okay, so the dragons kind of passively help the aliens in their power level, but the Cyber Apes kind of directly buff the aliens. They have play on minion cards that let you buff the power, such as Cyber Evolution and Juiced Up. And then while also having Clyde in play, every time that those actions go to the discard pile, you can take them right back to your hand. So I asked the community what they thought the best pairings were for the aliens, and if you're not a part of the Smash Posting Facebook page, go ahead and join. Then on the next faction review, you can go ahead and vote and tell me what you think the greatest pairings are for that faction. So by looking at this, we can see that the community kind of agrees with what I think. The Star Roamers, the Killer Plants, and the Time Travelers all have really good synergy with the invader. However, one faction I didn't mention, which is actually the highest faction that was rated by the community, is in fact the zombies. And that makes complete sense, because the zombies can keep pulling back your invaders from the discard pile over and over and over again. However, the problem I have with the zombies is that there really is no way to search out the invader. They also have an issue with drawing cards. As we go through more of these faction reviews, I will tend to not use zombies as much as a recommendation for pairings, just because the zombies really do go well with almost every single faction. Because if you think about it, the zombies' main niche is being able to come back from the discard pile. And if you have really strong abilities that come from hand, well, what happens when they get destroyed or after a base scores? It goes right to the discard pile. So you get to use them again, over and over and over again. So the zombies, they really are a strong faction, very much top tier. However, again, I will tend to not recommend zombies because zombies are just inherently good with everything. Looking at the rest of the votes, the Shapeshifters got 2 votes, the Ninjas got 2 votes, the Robots got 2 votes, the Wizards got 1 vote, and the Kaiju got 1 vote as well. I was actually kind of surprised that the Shapeshifters got less votes than the Killer Plants, because really they are the same kind of strategy, and I think I tend to like the Shapeshifters more just because you can instantly proc the Gelf ability, whereas the Sprout ability you have to wait till the next turn to proc that ability. And who knows if that Sprout's really going to stick around until it comes to your turn. And finally, let's talk about some of the non-ideal pairings for the aliens. Basically, you don't want to pick a faction that just has a bunch of weak minions, unless it's spammable like maybe the Robots or the Teddy Bears. Basically, factions with a bunch of small minions like the Locals in Innsmouth or the Itty Critters, it'll be more of a detriment to you because you'll get a bunch of clunky hands with all these small minions, and you're not really helping the weakness of your aliens, which is its small power already. If you pair the aliens with another faction with a bunch of these small minions, and you get paired against something like the Sharks, you're gonna be in for a very rough ride. And that's it for the aliens, you guys. Thanks for watching. If you'd be so kind to drop us a like and hit that subscribe button, stick around for more of these faction reviews coming in the near future. And let me know in the comments, what faction do you want me to review next? We're gonna hit all of the base set factions, so any of those factions you see on the right, leave a comment down below, and the most suggested faction that gets the most comments, that's the one we're gonna do next. And until next time, we'll see you in the next one. Peace!